Good morning. For those of you who are here and online, we are going to begin our service at 10:15. So enjoy your conversation or another cup of coffee, or if you're home, or tea, or whatever you're enjoying there. And we will start in a few minutes. Thank you.
Quay, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Nina Ho Kenkantu Kesachek. I am Larry Spotted Crow Man, and you're going to hear more about me later and who I am. But right now, I just would like to offer a gathering song to get us all started. Thank you. And I turn it over to you, Sue.
So Larry, thank you so much for that opening music. I just have to comment about the deep rhythms that kind of brought me closer to the earth, and then suddenly the little bell that took me up towards the heavens. Very interesting mix. So thank you very much. Did everybody hear me? I was speaking close enough to the mic. Okay, so I'm getting the thumbs up from Stephen, who's my guide back in the back. Thank you, Stephen. So my name is David Turner. Good morning to all of you. Glad that you've come to join us today for this summer service, and that I look forward to being with you, and along with Sue and Larry. So I did a quick survey, and none of you are new. So welcome to everybody who's not new. So you know a good deal about our church and about this congregation. I'll repeat some of the things that we think are worth repeating. So what we say is that we come together, both here and online, And there are people online. I don't know how many there are, but we're glad that you're also choosing to join us. And we share what our commitments are. We are committed, meaning that we've come together as a community, making a common covenant to love. To justice in this world, and to seeking peace in ourselves and with all others of whom we may come in touch with, or even who are part of our extended circle of care. We ask people, as you know, to come as you are, whatever your point of view is, whatever your references are, whatever your history might be, to come as you are, to join us in our covenant of love and our commitment to love, to gather with us, to act, to make a difference in the world, and to confront that with a sense of courage in the face of what seems to be untouchable obstacles. But we will be courageous, with our intention that the world can change and grow and expand and be transformed. And we will be part of that. So, if you need an order of service, they actually have no value. Didn't we decide that? That the order of service is not accurate? Pardon me? Okay, good. So we cleaned that one up. So if you need one of those, can they get it online?
I don't know if they can have it
They may not be able to get it online, but we will clearly guide you through the service. Okay, good. So you can, do we have any announcements or activities in the order of service, Sue?
Not in the order of service.
Okay, we don't. But I will share with you the upcoming activities. This is the summer, as you know. So the upcoming activities are the summer services. So there's going to be this one with Sue and Larry. Next week we're doing a 4th of July service, which is normally held outside, if I'm... Brown Square, right? And there's a reading. It's actually very interesting, engaging. How many people have done that in the past? It's actually very fun to be out there. So keep that in mind. The following, on the 12th, I'm going to be the worship leader for that one. And I'm approaching that around my own confusion. Basically, I'm confused often by the words of our liturgy. What do these words mean? I don't understand exactly what they're trying to tell me. I repeat them because I want to be part of this community, and I love this community, so yes, I will repeat these every Sunday, but I don't necessarily understand everything about them. So I decided to do some research into the etymology of many of these phrases that we use. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. What does that exactly mean? To grow into harmony with the divine? I'm not certain what that means either. So I've done some research into where those words have come from, who has said them in the past, what they've meant to other people, to philosophers, to theologians. So it's not so much my opinion, but it's what I'm learning as I try to become less confused. So that will be the approach to that one. The following week, Doug will be doing a very interesting kind of philosophical insight into an area that many of us are also somewhat confused about. I don't want to speak for him, but that will be on the following summer service. So keep those in mind. And then the last thing I'll say, sort of unabashed self-promotion. I have a workshop that I'm doing. You'll find a description of that on the table outside. The next one's going to be on the next workshop I'm doing is on the 27th, I think is what it is. So keep that in mind. Pardon me? That was yesterday. Okay, so it'll be in July. I did that. Oh, I did that one already. You were there, so I appreciate that. Okay, so Every Sunday, it is a blessing that we are here together and can gather. So open ourselves to what we're going to learn from Larry, from Sue. We look forward to that. It is good to be together. Thank you.
As we enter into worship, may we acknowledge that our church stands, and we stand virtually today, on the traditional and ancestral land of the Pennacook people. Pennacook, also called Merrimack, means bottom of the hill. We honor the spirit, and therefore the heart of this land is your land, Kawasuk Band of the Pennacook Abenaki people. This morning we welcome Larry Spotted Crow Man, who provided us that beautiful gathering music. Larry is an enrolled citizen of the Hassanamisko Nipmuc Band of Massachusetts and the executive director of the Okito Cultural Center. He is an award-winning writer, poet, cultural educator, traditional storyteller, tribal drummer, and motivational speaker whose work focuses on youth sobriety, cultural preservation, environmental awareness, and Indigenous education. We welcome you, and we welcome you all to worship. Please join us in saying our chalice lighting words as David Turner lights the chalice. The words can be found in your order of service. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. You're going to do that. Yeah, you're still on. Each week we also light 2 candles of peace, representing the 2 places on earth we lift up and remember as a sacred encounter with our world. There are untold number of places on earth that need peace. These 2 we especially hold close in this service and through the week ahead. After each candle is lit, we will sit in shared silence, and then I will invite you to respond by saying, peace, salam, shalom. Our first candle of peace, we lift up Indigenous communities whose connection to their ancestral lands remains virtual to their identity, culture, and well-being. We hold in our hearts the ongoing struggle to protect tribal sovereignty, uphold treaty rights, preserve cultural traditions, and ensure that Indigenous voices and rights are respected. May there be justice, understanding, and peace for all who work to sustain and strengthen Indigenous ways of life. To this we respond, peace, salam, shalom. Our second candle of peace, we lift up the work of the Okito and its vision of creating a permanent Indigenous cultural center on the North Shore. We pray for the support, encouragement, and resources needed to bring this vision to life, a place of belonging, healing, learning, and cultural renewal. May it become a living bridge between generations, honoring the past, serving the present, and inspiring future generations with pride, purpose, and peace. To this we respond, peace, salam, shalom. Please rise in body or spirit and join our affirmation of faith, and we will not follow it with a doxology. The words can be found in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God.
I take your. Can you accept my apologies for the moment?
Oh, you want to sing the anthem? From the Lord that dwell below the sky, let faith and hope with love.
Beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, every tongue. Okay, so this is the time for our weekly offering. The generosity of our community is an essential ministry that supports the work of the church, both in Newburyport and beyond. As you know, 50% of the Sunday offering not designated as a pledge goes to a local community partner engaged in important efforts to transform our region. Our community partner this month is Newburyport Pride. So let me tell you a little bit about that. Newburyport Pride unites, educates, and empowers the LGBTQ plus community and their allies with a focus on inclusion. They work to educate the wider community on diversity topics in order to build a stronger and healthier society. They do this by facilitating LGBTQ plus pride events that inspire, commemorate, and celebrate their diverse community through unity and visibility. To give online, please use the link in your order of service or below the live stream. You can also make a contribution by text, and of course, you can always mail a check to the church as well. Thank you. The offering will now be gratefully received.
I'd like to start off before I do my lesson with another song. This time we'll be sharing a song on traditional rattle. We as the Eastern Woodland peoples, we are, I would say Nipmuc means people of the water, so we're water people essentially, rivers, lakes, and ocean. So and many times on the water, we'd have traveling songs, and this is a paddle song that we would share. Yahweh, 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 na, we na, we na, we na, hi na, we na, we na, we na, hey na, we na, hi na, we na, we na, Yahweh. Kiti ang nuwechi nipi yahayam Nipikitiang nuechi nenawan. Chemoche munake, chemoche munake, chemoche munake yahena. Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh na. Kitiang nuechi nipi yaheya. Nipi kitiang nuechi nenawan. Chemoche munake, chemoche munake, chemoche munake, Yahweh hana. So the words in that song are, we live for the water. It's in the Nipmuc Algonquin language. We live for the water lives for us. Paddle strong, warriors, paddle strong. And it's important to make a distinction. Long story short, English is a noun-orientated language. Algonquin is a verb-orientated language. So when you translate the word warrior, it has a gender to it in English, essentially, but in our language, we don't have genders in that sense. So warrior, male, female, it's not talking about a gender, and that's important to recognize. So with that, I want to share some words with you all. How's everybody doing? That's good. So we say, Motapa Moni, good morning. I want to thank Sue for inviting me into this sacred space. When I was asked to speak here today, I was given a request to please educate us on yesterday, today, tomorrow, about the people who lived on the land that the church sits on. And so I sat with those words for some time, as they are not a small request. It is a one thing to ask for history, it is another thing to ask for truth. Truth that is not readily visible or available. And truth asks something of us all. And as I said, my name is Larry Spotted Crow Man. I am an enrolled citizen of the Hassanimisco Nipmuc tribe. I am also a writer, storyteller, cultural educator, and the executive director of the Okiteo Cultural Center, which is an indigenous-led center here on the North Shore. More about that in a bit. But titles only tell part of the story, as I had spent my entire adult life sharing culture, traditions, and songs of my ancestors. And so it's been an interesting journey over 3 decades. So I stand before you as someone carrying memory, memory in my body, memory in my spirit, and memory in the bloodlines, stories, songs, grief, and survival. I am here as one of the descendants of the people this land remembers. And yes, the land does remember. And this particular land remembers deeply. The church we gather here today sits within the ancestral homelands of the Pawtucket Pennacook people, relatives within the wider indigenous world that has long been connected to my own Nipmuc ancestors through kinship, trade, marriage, diplomacy, and shared survival. Long before this became Newburyport, this place was part of a thriving, sticky fingers here, thriving indigenous cultural landscape. This was not a wilderness. This was home. Not far from here, around the Parker River in Old Town, was a major native settlement, known as, dry here, Quasquequan, or a place just right for the fields in the Algonquin translation. Along the Merrimack Estuary, Joppa Flats, Plum Island, and the salt marshes, our ancestors harvested shellfish, fished for bass and cod, gathered medicines, hunted game, planted crops, and traveled by Machoon through waterways that connected inland villages all the way to the coast. In the spring, families gathered at the falls of the Parker River near present-day Byfield. There, they built fish weirs and eel traps and harvested spawning salmon and shad. Those fish runs were not merely food sources, they were part of ceremony, relationships, and the seasonal rhythm of this land. The seasons marked by the moon and the rivers and tides were our calendars. The land was not property, it was our relative. Long before Massachusetts was divided into towns and counties, long before roads, fences, deeds, Church steeples, the rivers connected our people. The Merrimack, Parker, Ipswich, Concord, Mystic, Nashaway, and so many others is why we have so many travel songs along the water. They were not boundaries. They were pathways of thriving communities connected. They carried mishuns, trade, medicine, ceremony, stories, diplomacy, songs, marriages, and family. Too often, people imagine indigenous nations isolated tribes separated neatly by borders, but that is not how our ancestors lived. The historical records reveal something far more complex and beautiful. The Hassanimisco-Nipmuc, The Hassanimisco-Nipmuc and Pennacook were deeply connected through kinship, marriage, diplomacy, shared hardship, and shared responsibility to the land and water. Now, modernized, they may appear as separate peoples occupying separate territories. But our ancestors understood something many have forgotten. Communities extend beyond borders. And I'll say that again. Communities extend beyond borders. Our ancestors knew this was an innate spiritual way of being, and is why we were so welcoming to the first newcomers from Europe. Now, here on the North Shore, leaders like Nana Passionate, Passaconaway, Wana Lancet guided powerful indigenous confederacies throughout the Merrimack Valley. To the south and west, Nipmuc communities thrived throughout our homeland, Hassanimissit, Wachusett, Quabog, Nashaway, and beyond. Ancient trails and waterways connected them. Families connected them. Love connected them. Yawata, Nana Passionate's only daughter, married John Asawam, a leader from a prominent Hassanimisco-Nipmuc family, which is traced down to their grandson, the Revolutionary War soldier, James Weiser, whose direct descendants are living relatives, cousins, and kin, like myself before you here today. Through that marriage, bloodlines joined in a continuous rhythm that had gone on for eons. Winahue, later called Sarah Doublet, was born among the Pennacook of Wamisit and became a respected female leader whose life connected the Merrimack Valley to the Nipmuc communities. Even after war devastated Native life, she maintained relationships from village to village. Following the King Philip's War, Winahue appears in colonial records signing deeds and agreements along leaders from Neshoba, Natick, and Hassanimissit, showing these intertribal relationships endured long after the war. Her presence in those records reminds us that Native women often held crucial political authority, especially in maintaining kinship, networks across homelands, highlighting a time where colonial women unfortunately had no rights. Native peoples exhibited an equity that was far beyond colonial Europe at that time. Because the relationships were never accidental, it was a sacred responsibility. Then came colonization. And with colonization came something familiar to many oppressed peoples. Erasure, land was taken, treaties were broken, and villages were destroyed. Children and families were stolen. Communities were divided. The taking of land did not always happen through open violence. Sometimes it happened through paper, through deeds, through the church and the suppression of cultural identity, through legal systems built on beliefs foreign to indigenous peoples of this land. English settlers looked at seasonal villages, fallow planting fields, and temporary camps and assumed the land was empty and available. They mistook stewardship for absence. They mistook relationships for ownership. Our ancestors did not believe land could be owned in the way Europeans believed. To claim ownership of land would have sounded as absurd as claiming ownership of the air, but I suppose today folks would even try that. Yet fences rose, deeds were written, and boundaries were imposed. And places that had nourished indigenous families for generations became private property. The King Philip's War brought immense suffering. Native villages were forced to choose sides, families were separated, and villages were decimated. Many who had allied with the English were imprisoned on Deer Island alongside those who resisted colonial expansion. They didn't decipher between the two. Leaders such as Wana Lancet sought peace. Families such as those of Winnehew, Assawamog, Quinnipocket, and Pettivit endured loss, displacement, and betrayal. Now, I know some of these names you may have never heard of before, but yes, they were prominent voices of their time, and their words carried great weight and dignity and integrity throughout this land. And yet, these connections have survived through people like myself. Despite colonial efforts to divide Native peoples into separate categories, the kinship remains. A marriage did not disappear because a border was drawn on a map. A family connection did not end because a village was burned. The descendants of Hassanamisco, Wamisit, Neshoba, Natick, and Pennacook communities continue to remember one another through stories, relationships, and shared history. And that is why I'm here today, as one of those descendants, carrying blood, memory, and spiritual memory. The ties that guided Nenapashnit, Passaconaway, and Wanalassett did not disappear. They live in us. They live in this land. They live in the rivers. And that is why the work with Okiteo matters so deeply. Okiteo means a place to plant and grow in the Nipmuc language, because it reminds us that healing is not only about recovering what was lost, it is about growing what could be possible. Through my work with Okiteo, I have come to understand something important. Cultural revitalization is not simply about preserving traditions. It is about restoring relationships to land, to community, to ancestors, and of course to our future generations. Sticky paper. That is where yesterday meets today and brings us here, to this church, to this land. I know that land acknowledgments are shared. So then, if we acknowledge that land was unjustly assumed, then the next question must be, now what? What do we do with that truth? Guilt alone cannot heal. Shame alone cannot restore. But relationships can begin something new. Reciprocity can begin something new. Listening can begin with something new. Now, I like to imagine a North Shore where Indigenous cultural education is visible in public spaces, an Indigenous cultural hub that pays honor to the Native peoples of yesterday, today, and tomorrow, where Native foods are grown and shared, where traditional ecological knowledge helps guide conservation along the Merrimack, Parker, and Ipswich rivers. And from what just happened at the Merrimack, we could sure use it. It's so sad. Envision where schools teach local Indigenous history as a living story, not as a chapter that ended centuries ago, where storytelling, paddles, walks, ceremonies, language revitalization, and cultural gatherings reconnect people to the land and to one another. That future is possible. And in fact, I'd say it's already beginning. We are awakening what has already been here. I believe this is a spiritual invitation for all of us, not simply to remember Indigenous history, but to enter into Indigenous relationship, to understand that the land beneath this church is not inert property. It is a living relation. It has memory. It has story. It has responsibility attached to it. And perhaps that is the lesson. Yesterday teaches us truth. Today asks us for courage. Tomorrow asks us what we can build together. When I look toward the future, I do not see the North Shore, this culture, as simply a place of Indigenous history remembered. I see it as something much larger. I see a living hub of Indigenous culture, renewal, creativity, community. I see children learning languages. I see elders sharing stories. I see rivers cared for as relatives. Native and non-Native communities coming together to build something rooted in reciprocity instead of extraction. I see healing, and I believe that future is possible. Because despite of everything our ancestors endured, they have adapted, they've resisted, and they kept that love alive. And they carry that memory forward until it reached us. They carry that memory forward until it reached us here today. And now it is our turn. The rivers still flow, just as they once carried mishuns, trade songs, and families. They still carry memory. And I'd like to leave you with this word. We are not looking at strangers to history. We are looking at the history of relatives, allies, and interconnected communities whose lives touch one another across generations. The question is no longer whether Indigenous people belong to the past. The question is whether all of us are willing to participate in a more truthful future that can heal us all. Kudabadamish. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Larry. There's lots to think about, and the truth of the history is a very good place to start. And so thank you for helping us overcome our education. I'd like you to stand please, and join me in the unison benediction. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always.
So I'd like to share this prayer that we have. It is in our Algonquin language, and it really speaks to this land in the language that it remembers. There's no exact translation, but it is inviting our ancestors. It is inviting us for healing, for prayer, for blessings. And we say, Wun nasha natumo manatu, tabatni, watu chikinnisin, okumis, tabatni wuchi sapausu, wasukatie huana, notas ninwa menantiok, king nuta yiu pentaminok, and a meo ninwa me quantam kichiak, ka mata wanantam, ka nagutie kukutam ninuan, manatu, wasukatie huana, womanitatil, ka nosokamusu amoke, Ninaho kenkantu cho kesachek. Niayo. The body minute Niwichi, Newburyport. Niayo. And now this is a share a Nipmuc healing song. Lodimish. Thank you. The translations of those words in that healing song are, it's asking the Creator, the Great Spirit, to bring peace back to the Ninewak, which is the human beings, all of us, praying for peace and healing around the world. And we do need that. Thank you.
As David extinguishes the chalice and the candles, and we receive, go in peace, my friends, and return again in great joy.